Yes, it's the very exciting part of the classes is the natural remedies. And I'm going to go through a few natural remedies. These are all in detail in my book, Sustain Me. And the one I'm going to begin with is the onion. And the onion was the first poultice that I ever did. And it was told me by an old lady that lived next door. She's about 85. See, my first daughter, she got an earache, and over 6 weeks and 4 courses of antibiotics, the doctor's writing the 5th course. And I said, will my daughter be on this for the rest of her life? And he was challenged by my question. He sent me to an ear, nose and throat specialist who told me, give her these drops to keep the eustachian tubes clear, and the earache didn't come back. So 2 years later, when my next child gets an earache, I don't go to the doctor. I don't tell anyone because she gets so much pressure. Child to go deaf. I went to the old lady next door and she told me to steam up an onion on the stove, which I did. I steamed up an onion on the stove. I don't think it was quite as big as this onion. And what you do when it's steamed, you can steam it or dry bake it so that you're looking at the rings and you keep the ends intact because that holds it together. And then you wrap that in a cloth. And I wrapped it in a cloth. James was breastfeeding, so I put it next to his ear and my arm could feel it. And he fell asleep. He slept for 2 hours. But when I laid him down, because you can keep it on the ear as long as you can keep it warm. So this is a very large onion. So you might wrap it in a cloth and then put like a plastic square on it. What the plastic does is it insulates it. You could bandage it on the head, or some people slip it under a woolen beanie, as long as you can keep it warm. So what I did with James is I had a very thick towel folded up a few times and I just laid him asleep on the onion in the towel, which I knew would keep it warm. And so you can imagine comparing my 2 experiences. That was the start. That was James is 46 now, so that was 44 years ago. And that was the first poultice I ever did. I'd never heard of a poultice. So cooked onion can be used for an earache. What if the earache comes back? Do it again. What if it comes back? Do it again. In fact, I knew one lady, she did it for 7 days. What else are you going to do? And you know, eventually it'll go. You're not going to have an earache forever. And when I investigated with this lady, I discovered that she had earaches a lot as a child because she had a dairy intolerance and she was also eating too much sugar. So you've always got to look at the whys. Why is it happening? And because she was given so many antibiotics, now at the age of 40, it appears that the body had to go through that as part of healing. She said the onion brought a relief, so she just kept doing the onion. And it would take the pain away, and then a few hours later it would come back, so she put another onion on. You're not going to be doing it for years. What the body says to do, you just do. A cooked onion poultice can also be used for a boil. And I've had people tell me that, you know, some people have had boils and they try and squeeze it. That's incredibly painful. It's incredibly painful as the pressure builds up. And I've told them about the cooked onion poultice. With the cooked onion poultice, you just put the onion straight on the boil. Obviously, you don't do it when it's boiling, but you do it when you can handle that temperature. And then you could just put what I've done here with cling wrap, I've just folded over it a few times so it's a bit more usable. And then put the plastic on it, tape it or bandage it on. And ideally with a boil, you keep it there for as long as you can, even 24 hours. And I've had people tell me it brings a lot of relief because the onion is a drawer. And one lady said that she started to feel very moist So she took it off, and when she took it off, everything came out. You see, the onion, being a drawer, and the heat from the onion, it draws everything into one spot, and then the softness of that cooked onion opens the top. So there's no squeezing, it just all comes out. And I've had people tell me, what a difference. Instead of suffering for days, the onion poultice brings relief, and then when they do take it off, it seems to just pull everything out. So they're the two places that the cooked onion poultice can be used. With the cooked onion for the ear, once it's soft, you can squeeze the onion juice into a teaspoon. Remember, it's cooked. And then you can put that into the ear. It'll be boiling hot, but when it's squeezed into the cold spoon, it just brings the temperature down, and it can be, the onion juice can be put in the ear and then the poultice wrapped on the ear. Remember, it can stay there as long as you can keep it warm. Now we're going to have a look at a raw onion poultice. And a raw onion poultice can be used for a few things. And one is a sore throat. A lady said to me, "What can I do for my child's strep throat?" I said, "What's this strep throat?" When my kids were little, you know what it was called? Sore throat. Now it's strep throat. And I've had several mothers say, "It's strep throat." How do you know it's strep throat? It's just a sore throat. And you know what they're told? You've got to give the child an antibiotic or it could go to the brain. Where'd that come from? And so the mother gives it because of fear. People have been getting sore throats for centuries. Since time dot, isn't that true? There's no need to have an antibiotic. But the mother does it because of fear. Remember what you do? Thank you so much for your opinion. I'll seriously consider this, and maybe as you're going out of the surgery, you'll just let that script slip into the bin. Because there is no need. Do you know, if you do nothing, the child will recover. Did you hear that? But these are things you can do. So what I've done is I've got some fine slices of onion, and I'll put it in a cloth. This is, I think you call it a dishcloth. And we're going to wrap it over a couple of times. So now we've got like a little parcel, little long parcel. And the area where there's only one layer of cloth, that goes on the neck. And then you can cover that with plastic and then a scarf, and you can wear that overnight. Your bed partner might not like your perfume that night. But it will certainly bring relief to a sore throat. Remember, the sore throat will recover. Most people that get a cold, they get a sore throat. So when I got really badly chilled in Saudi Arabia, I got a very bad sore throat. And guess what? It passes. But what I did was I took cayenne pepper, and you think, ooh, wouldn't that hurt a sore throat? You know, it tingles. But when that tingling settles down, it eases. The sore throat eases. Remember what our grandmother did? Lemon and honey. Just the simple things that our grandparents did. So now there's something you can do, and this is if a child, or anyone really, has a cough, especially at night. You can get a cloth and you can put chopped onion in that cloth, and then you put the foot straight onto the chopped onion. So the sole of the foot goes on the chopped onion. You pull that cloth around and put it in a plastic bag and then put a sock on. Or what some people have done is they've just put the chopped onion down inside the sock. But as long as the chopped onion is touching the bottom of the feet. And ideally it's something that you do at night because it's a little bit hard to walk on a chopped onion. And I was with my daughter one day, and her little boy, he was 3, he had a bad cough and he was coughing. She gave him a hot lemon and honey drink and a hot bath, and wrapped him up, put him to bed, and he coughed, and he coughed, and he coughed, and he coughed. For half an hour he coughed non-stop. We thought, oh, he'll go to sleep in a minute, but he didn't. So she got him up, and we put chopped onion on the bottom of his feet, wrapped his feet up, put him back to bed. Not one more cough. It's unbelievable. Not one more cough the whole night. See, the biggest pores in the whole of your body are on the soles of your feet. So now we're going to make an onion poultice. We've only got a little jar, so we'll just be making a little bit of onion cough syrup. And you put about half an inch of chopped onion, and then you drizzle approximately a teaspoon of honey, and then more chopped onion, and you keep layering it up until you run out of onion or your jar's full. Another teaspoon of honey. By the end of our demonstration tonight, a syrup will have formed. So at the moment we've just got sticky honey and onion. But usually it takes about an hour and you'll see a syrup forming. Ideally, you let that sit for 24 hours and then you strain the onion out, and there's your honey onion cough syrup. So an adult might have a teaspoon every 2 hours if they've got a bad cough. You might give a child a half a teaspoon, or it might be a half a teaspoon 3 times a day. And I usually put a particularly good helping right on the top, maybe even 2 teaspoons. And then we're going to put the lid on. I've even done this with candied honey. So when my children were little, I used to buy buckets of honey. That would last us a year. And in the winter, it would go solid. And I've made this with those solid chunks of honey, and it still forms the syrup. It's the reaction of the onion on the honey. So you can see at the moment, if I tip it up, there's no syrup at all. It's just thick, gooey honey and onion. But by the end of our demonstration, syrup will be forming. So they're the main things that we do with onion. Now we're going to have a look at a relative of the onion, which is garlic. Garlic's a very strong antibiotic. To use it as an antibiotic, and the good news is it doesn't kill off your healthy flora in your colon. If anything, it even feeds it. It's a nice probiotic, or I should say it's pre and probiotic. And it can be used as an antibiotic. If you use it as an antibiotic, you would take 4 raw cloves a day. Not everyone can handle raw garlic on the stomach because it's high in sulphur. If someone has a stomach ulcer, it could burn a little bit. But what you can do is you can crush it into a bowl of hot soup, and that will just take the edge off. Or you can crush it into mashed avocado. Or you can crush it into olive oil and get a baked potato and put that on a baked potato. Very, very nice. And you can also make a flu bomb. So I'll give you the recipe for the flu bomb. And this flu bomb, you can call it a COVID bomb if you like. You could call it a sinus bomb. You could call it a tonsil bomb. You can call any problem in the respiratory. So we'll just call it the flu bomb because that was the original recipe that a Chinese doctor gave to my father about 40 years ago. The number 1 ingredient is garlic, and that garlic is crushed. How much garlic? How much can you handle? So you might be able to handle 2 cloves or half a clove. It's how much you can handle. Ginger is the second ingredient, and it's usually about 1/4 teaspoon, and that's a finely grated. And what I really like to use is this fine grater here on the side. Next ingredient is eucalyptus oil. And eucalyptus oil, there's definitely an amount, 1 drop. One lady said, I bought the eucalyptus oil to use, but I can't use it. I said, why not? She said, well, on the bottle it says not fit for human consumption. I said, well, we're not getting you to drink the bottle. It's 1 drop. Now in Australia you can buy eucalyptus cough drops. What do you think's in them? Eucalyptus oil. Yeah. There's a bit of common sense. The authorities, the princes, don't seem to think we've got any of that, do they? The other ingredient is cayenne pepper. I'm not putting an amount because how much can you handle? Some people can handle a light sprinkle, some people can handle half a teaspoon, some people can handle a teaspoon. The next ingredient is the juice of a lemon. The next ingredient is a teaspoon of honey. Believe me, you could put 4 teaspoons of honey in this and it will not improve the flavour. And usually that is put with half a cup of hot water. That's 1 dose. And if someone's got a bad cold and they have that 3 times a day, usually the cold can be gone, especially if they're eating very lightly and drinking a lot of water and having lots of sleeps. Often it can be gone in a day or 2. But you can't give that to a baby, but there's something that you can do to a baby, and that is you can finely slice the garlic and wrap it on the bottom of their feet. So to do this, I use a cloth like this, because you cannot let the garlic touch the feet. Did everyone get that? Because it will blister the feet. And we don't want to blister babies' feet. My sister did this to her little grandson, and within half an hour the child was screaming. I think he was about 10 months old. She had grated it on the fine grater and put it in a cloth, but all the juice came through. Whereas the beauty of the fine slice, you see I've got just fine slices there. The beauty of the fine slice is that that can wrap on the foot. So there's a cloth between the foot and the garlic. And little by little, because they're just slices, the juice goes through. Within several minutes, you can smell the garlic on the baby's breath, because it takes 1 minute for 1 drop of blood to go around the whole body. And the body knows how to use this and where to use this. And you would do this for a baby for a head cold, if they're a little bit blocked up in the nose, for a chest cold. It's very good for that. So that's how you do it for a baby, is garlic on the bottom of the foot. Next one we're going to look at is ginger. And ginger can be used internally and externally. And ginger is anti-nausea. And if you buy seasickness or car sickness tablets from the health food shop, it's usually just compressed ginger. I met a lady at a conference once, and she had a little tiny grater and ginger, and she was grating it up and pouring boiling water on it for a cup of tea. I said, aha, ginger tea. She said, I'm an entertainer, I'm a singer. I was in Greece, I lost my voice. A little Greek woman gave me a hot ginger tea and I sang that night. And notice that it is in the flu bomb. And if you have a massage in Asia, when you come out of the massage, they always have a cup of hot ginger tea there for you. Ginger is very good for nausea, it's very good for upset stomach. It'll settle the stomach. It's great for low hydrochloric acid. Even a third of a cup of hot ginger tea just before the meal can help to cause a release of your gastric juices. But ginger is also great for inflammation. So internally, if someone's been out shoveling snow and they're freezing cold, give them a hot ginger tea. It'll warm them up very quickly. It'll help with stomach upsets, and it'll help with nausea. Now we're going to have a look at how you can use it externally. You can use it externally as a poultice. I'm going to show you how to make the poultice. I fold over the cling wrap several times to make it usable. And then I've got a cloth. And I think you call it a dishcloth. I've torn it up so you can see that this is a lot bigger than that because I'm going to fold it over like a parcel. And the reason I'm making a ginger poultice is for joint pain. So ginger is for joint. So this can be used very effectively for gout. It can be used for arthritis. So whenever there's inflammation of the joint. My son James, he was working out. I think he was about 30 when this happened, probably overdoing it, and his arm swelled up. And he went to what he did was he did what Mum always does, and that's made a potato poultice, which we'll look at in a minute. That's for tissue inflammation, and the inflammation in his arm came down. But it was still very inflamed and swollen round the joint. So he went to the doctor. I think it's probably the first time he's been to the doctor. And the doctor looked at it and he said, "You've got bursitis." You know what bursitis is? Just inflammation of the bursa. And the bursa is the fluid around the elbow. So he wrote James out a script for an antibiotic. Now, I don't think every doctor would do that, but the doctor that James went to did. James got up, he looked at the man, he said, "I've never taken an antibiotic in my life and I'm not about to start." And James walked out. Do you think that doctor's ever heard that? No. And rang Mum. And I said, "Use ginger." Now you can see the colour, it's already coming out quite juicy. And that would be a great poultice for an elbow if it's inflamed. It would be a really good size for an inflamed wrist, especially if there's arthritis or gout in that area. Now with the plastic, the reason why you use the plastic, and as you can see, there's not a lot of plastic that is touching your skin. The plastic's important because it insulates the poultice, it prevents chilling, and it also protects your clothes. So if I was putting it on my wrist, I would put it on there, and then I would bandage that on. And if I had an inflamed wrist, within half an hour, that wrist would be getting very hot. That's an indication that there's inflammation in there, and it appears that the ginger pulls the inflammation out of the joint to the skin. So if we're doing this at Misty Mountain, we'll do it, say, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 8 o'clock we say, "How's it feeling?" And some people say, "It's burning me." Well, we'll just take it off. Because the fact that you feel it burning means it's already pulled a lot of the inflammation out. And then we say, yeah, right, I will take it off, but how's the joint feel? And they go, "Actually, I can move my joint because it's pulled the inflammation out." And then other people, we say, "How does it feel?" And they say, "Oh, it's really hot, feels wonderful." So we'll leave it on overnight. So we don't put it on just before bed in case they wake up an hour later going, "It's burning me." Now, the only time it will burn, we found, is if the skin is very, very sensitive. I have never seen this, but a lady sent me photos. She'd done it on an inflamed hip, and the whole hip, the skin area around the hip, was all red with this rash. She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, actually, I've done it hundreds of times and I've never seen that." But it happened to her. So I would suggest if you do it, and the skin gets really hot, just take it off. And some people think, well, this must be what it must feel like. I've got to keep it on. No, you don't got to keep it on. You've got to listen. And one lady put it on her sore knee. And she was so excited because she could bend her knee. She hadn't been able to bend her knee for months. And so then she made another one. She had it on all afternoon. Then she had a shower and made another one and had it on all night. And when she woke up in the morning, the knee was red and blisters. She said, what have I done? I said, overdone it. So ideally, you just maybe put the ginger poultice on for a couple of hours a day. But we've seen incredible results with getting inflammation. Remember, ginger is for joint. Really good for sore lower back if you've been lifting things you shouldn't. You've got to listen to the body. And ideally, when you lift, I'm going to go over here to show you how does a 2-year-old lift a ball. Have you seen? How do we lift a ball? When you bend that back, you put all the strain on the back. The biggest muscle mass in the body is your quads. The biggest bone is your femur. And that's what God designed us to lift with. And when you lift, you engage your core. So I've got, well, my bags are heavy because I've got to have a lot of clothes. And I look, if I'm by myself, I look for a young man, fit, about 40, would you mind? And they get it off. But if I can't find anyone, I prepare I bend my knees, I engage my core. You've got to look after that back because painful backs are no fun. No fun at all. Keep the core strong. That's how you protect your back. Now, if you visited someone and they had an inflamed ankle or wrist, you could make this for them and fold it up and even put it in a snap-lock bag, say, in the fridge. You couldn't make it days ahead, but you could make it, for tomorrow morning or for the night. But once it's used, it must be discarded because it's fresh vegetable matter. So ginger's for joint, and we've seen some quite remarkable responses with the simple ginger poultice. Now I'm going to look at potato. Potato is for tissue inflammation. You would never put a ginger poultice on a sore eye. And you would never put a ginger poultice on a tender area in the body, but the potato. Potato is very soothing, and potato is very calming. So for inflamed eyes, for, I think you call it pink eye, sometimes men that are welding, they'll get real red eyes. This is very, very soothing and calming for any of those conditions. So I'm going to grate the potato, and notice that I put the plastic down, then I put the cloth down. It's a good idea to make a poultice box at home. And you could buy dishcloth. I think Walmart have those, don't they? See, my husband, because I'm away a lot, he thinks he's really smart because he sleeps on his side of the bed for a week, then my side of the bed for a week, then he washes the sheets. Thinks he's very clever. And I've got sheets in the cupboard, but he uses the same sheets again and again, so when I got home, there was a hole in the sheet. They're the best sheets for poultices. When the 15-year-old boy puts his foot through the sheet, that's very good for poultices. Must be natural fibre. Hopefully your sheets are natural fibre. Fine cotton is the best. Or if you don't have that, you could just buy the dishcloth. So the grated potato poultice is very good for all tissue inflammation. So that would be a sprained ankle. It's very good for that. So notice that I've just grated. So maybe we're going to do this for an ankle. So I've grated about 2 teaspoons of potato there. And then I'm going to make the poultice. To make the poultice, you fold over north and south and then east and west. So now you've got that little package, and the area that goes onto the part that you want to treat is where you've got a single cloth, and you already see the juice coming out of there, and then that's about a good size to have that. Also very good for ingrown toenails. That would be a good size if someone had a sore eye. You could put it on the eye, bandage it on, and someone could sleep with it overnight. So any area where the tissue is inflamed, it's very good for that. So it must have been about 10 years ago. I was riding my bicycle across our bridge. It's an old bridge. Every time the floods come up every year. Every time the flood goes down, a bit more bridge is gone. But Michael assures me we've got a new bridge, which is great. But I was riding across the bridge 10 years ago and not watching where my wheel was going, and it got caught and I fell over. And that's why I've got a dent in my cheek now. I crashed my cheek there. But what hurt the most was my finger, and it had a lump of wood had gone right the bottom and under my skin. Oh, now that really hurt. So my son, William, he saw me and went home. I said, what is it? My finger. And he said, just hold your breath, Mum, I'll get it out. Well, I couldn't bear that pain. I said, leave it, I'll do a poultice. So what I did was I just slept with the grated potato poultice on it all night. The grated potato poultice was about a quarter that size. And I slept all night, but I did have my hand up in the air. Now I did that every night for 3 nights. There was no redness, no pain at all. Now this bridge is very old. It's probably about 50 years old, and the boards are breaking down a bit. That's why the flood takes a bit more away every flood. So that's in my skin. So that's really dirty old wood. So what would have happened if I'd done nothing? I'd say it would have swollen right up, yeah. My red and white blood cells, my lymphatics go there, and the white blood cells are eating it away, and as they die, that's called pus, is that right? Yeah. But I kept it as clean as a whistle by just the grated potato. And so that was 3 nights. So on the 4th morning I looked at it and I just pushed it a bit, and that lump of wood just came straight out. So it's so nice to have these simple remedies. We've helped many children, myself included, people treading on rusty nails, just with the grated potato poultice. What the grated potato poultice does is it pulls. In fact, my grandson, he was 4, he trod on a rusty nail. So we cleaned him up, of course, get the dirt out, and put the grated potato poultice on his foot, bandaged it up, put a sock on, and he happily went off with his grated potato shoe. My son bathed him that night, looked nice and clean, no red or swelling. So he did it overnight. In the morning, looked great, put shoes and socks on him that day. End of the day, it's getting a little bit swollen, a little bit red, so I put the potato poultice on again. This happened 3 days. And on the 4th day, at the end of the day, there was no swelling. The little wound was starting to heal. So we didn't do it again. But if it gets red or swollen, what do? Let's put another one on. So this is how I raised 8 children without going to the doctor and without antibiotics. It's just these simple things. You know the old saying, nip it in the bud, a stitch in time saves 9. As soon as it happens, you're onto it. So it's like this finger. As soon as it happened, I was onto it. So I kept it as clean as a whistle. Just what did it was just the grated potato. Because it's fresh vegetable matter, you discard it. And that's the beauty of making a poultice, is as soon as you take it off, you just throw it away. I always go to great lengths to make sure it's neat, because there's nothing worse than grated potato all through the bed. But it keeps it in a nice little package. So that's the potato. What I'd like to look at now is castor oil. Castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil, and wherever castor oil penetrates, it breaks up lumps, bumps, congestion, adhesion. Castor oil breaks up unnatural formations, so very, very good on scar tissue, also on endometriosis, those little pockets, fibroids in the uterus, cysts on the ovaries. It'll penetrate deep and break all of those up. Gallstones in the gallbladder, any liver problems, the castor oil compress is very good there. Going at the back, kidney stones, cysts on the kidneys, cysts on the liver, apply the castor oil compress. And I mentioned, I think yesterday, or in the questions, cataracts, castor oil in the eye. And if ever you get anything in the eye, you can put a drop of castor oil on it. It'll often work its way out. Bone spur. The bone spur's been there 3 years, it'll take 3 months. If it's been there 3 months, it'll take 3 weeks. If it's been there 3 weeks, sometimes in 3 days the spur can be gone. And it will never break up your bone, because remember Psalm 104 verse 14, God gave herbs for the service of man. So this is a compress, and being a compress, it can be used again and again and again, because as a compress, it's not drawing anything out of you, it's just a vehicle. So I'm making several layers, because the thicker the compress, the more castor oil it can hold. So 1, 2, 3, I think I've got about 9 layers there. And then I put it on the plastic, and I'm going to put the castor oil on it. And you will notice that I'm not covering the whole compress with castor oil, because it takes a while to soak through. I'm only going to cover probably half of the area, and it'll sit on the top of the compress like a bubble, and I'm going to just sit it there, and in about 10 minutes I'll be able to hold it up for you. But it's just going to sit there because it's such thick oil. But I'll hold that up when it's done, but I'll give an illustration of what I have done here. So here's the plastic, and here's the compress. And remember, we've got several layers. If I was using a soft wool, I might only use 3 or 4 layers. If I'm using toweling, I might only use 2 layers. But I only put this much castor oil on because it's so thick that it takes about 15 minutes to soak through. And when it soaks through, it takes up a bit more room. And then when it goes on your hot body, then that thins the oil and it takes up more room. Can you see why you do it like that? That's important. I said to a lady who had fibroids, have you tried the castor oil? She said, I'm not going to use that. I've got castor oil all through my clothes, all through the bed. I said, you've used too much. So if you cover that whole compress with castor oil, when it goes on your hot body, it's got nowhere to go. So yes, it'll drip everywhere, and that is no fun. My daughter, Emma, she lives just across the border from Minnesota into Wisconsin. She has a website, barbaro'neill.com, so it's very easy to remember. And if you go to her website, she sells castor oil compresses. And these have got Velcro strip on them, and they've got like a soft vinyl, and they're soft inside. And they're ones that'll go around your throat. See, if someone's got nodules on their thyroid, the castor oil can help to break that up. So there's a nice little one that fits around the neck, and it has Velcro. So you use the compress like this, and then you put then you put that little one around it. She's got a nice little one with Velcro for the wrist, and she's got some that are about this big for the breast. So it's very good for lumps in the breast, for breast cancer. In fact, I have met a few ladies that have conquered their breast cancer by wearing castor oil compresses. One lady said, I just wear it 24/7. And getting a cotton bra, and it'll just holds it in place. So if someone has a sore knee, they might do the ginger poultice for a couple of hours in the afternoon and then wear the castor oil compress overnight. There we are. That's just soaked in. That only took about 7 minutes to soak in. So that's a nice size. I actually wear one every single night on my wrist because I know that I sustained more than bone break. In fact, I discovered the bone heals quickly. So I still can't get my fingers right down. Better than it was when it came out of the plaster. I couldn't even do more than that. So with my whole body flying in the air and slamming on this big rock, we were just concentrating on the broken bone, but there's a whole lot of ligament and tendon and tissue damage that you deal with. And so I wear the castor oil compress on that every night, and I've got full use of my hand now. And that just keeps it in check, because I also realise whenever you've got damage, you've got scar tissue build-up. So the castor oil can be used for any area where you've got unnatural growths. What about the prostate? Well, difficult to apply to the prostate, because here's the scrotum and here's the anus and there's the cheek of the buttock. There is the prostate. And it's very, very hard to apply a compress there. But what you can do, you can make a suppository. And to make a suppository, you have 50% coconut oil and you melt it. And 50% castor oil. And you mix those two together and you get a disposable glove. And then you pour it into the fingers of the glove and you tie off the end, and then you put it in the fridge. If you want it to go solid quickly, put it in the freezer. And so what the person with prostate problems, whether it's enlarged prostate or prostate cancer, they chop a finger off when it's solid and peel it, and then they insert it. And so what happens is the suppository is here, and as it melts, it goes across through to the prostate gland and can help to relieve inflammation or swelling of the prostate gland. So that's the best way to do it. Now, this suppository, that can be used for hemorrhoids, and a lot of people have found that it's brought great relief if someone has hemorrhoids. Also, a lady can use it into her vagina for any cervical problems, if she's got any growths there. Remember, the castor oil will break up unnatural formations. The next one I'm going to look at is cayenne pepper. I've mentioned cayenne pepper before and how effective it is in the blood, but you can use it internally. But first of all, I'll just mention it in a few areas. You can use the cayenne pepper for a sore throat. You can use cayenne pepper internally to thin the blood. You can use cayenne pepper internally to boost hydrochloric acid. And remember the book by Jethro Kloss, Back to Eden, where the good doctors that are quoted say it's impossible to abuse cayenne pepper. If someone's just coming off rat poison, I mean warfarin, that's what it is, they can take 2 capsules of cayenne pepper 3 times a day. someone's on warfarin or too much blood thinners, what sometimes happens is blood starts to come out their nose. They brush their arm and it bruises. That you can have a bucket of cayenne pepper a day and that will never happen. Because remember what cayenne pepper does, it just works with the needs of the body. But I don't know anyone that has a bucket a day. But even that would not hurt you. So I'm about to show you how you can use it externally. If someone has no feeling in their feet, it's called peripheral neuropathy, they should never put those feet into hot water. And yet often people with peripheral neuropathy or no feeling in their feet, it's a common side effect of chemotherapy, and also often happens with when people have diabetes. The circulation to their feet gets quite bad. But it also can happen from years and years of just having cold feet. Don't let them be cold. And you can't put cold feet into a bucket of hot water. But what you can do, you can use a cayenne pepper compress. So what I've done here is I've got the cling wrap folded over a few times, and I've just dotted. You don't pour the oil on, otherwise you'll have dripping oil all through the bed. That's no fun. I've just dotted it. And you can, I've used castor oil, but you could use coconut oil, you could use olive oil, and all it is you're using the oil to hold the cayenne pepper. So I'm now going to sprinkle about a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper onto this. So if someone's got cold feet, someone's got peripheral neuropathy, no feeling in their feet, you do this on both the feet and you leave it on there overnight. If I didn't put that oil there, the cayenne pepper would just fall off the cloth. So it's just, the oil is just to hold the cayenne pepper there. And I've put about a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper on that. So you can see that the cayenne pepper is being held by the oil. And now the person puts their foot straight onto that. And they can just put a sock on. So it's very easy to do. And they leave it on all night. Now if I did this to my feet, and my feet are warm because I go to great lengths to make sure they're always warm. And when I began to exercise, probably about 15 years ago, I no longer had cold feet because exercise is the best cure for circulation. But if I put this on my feet tonight, by 4 o'clock in the morning, I would feel like my feet are on fire. But if someone had cold feet, by morning their feet are warm. And if someone had peripheral neuropathy, no feeling in their feet, by morning they're feeling pins and needles in their feet. Now, I visited a lady one day who had peripheral neuropathy. She was late 70s. And I made her 6 of these. And what I did was I made them just like this, and then I just folded them over. And so I just put them in like a little snap-lock bag. And of course that would keep because it's not food. But I wouldn't do it every night, because if you do it every night, the feet can get too hot. So if someone had peripheral neuropathy, I would do it maybe 3 nights a week. And often by then they've got feeling in their feet. And that's quite incredible because medicine has no answer for peripheral neuropathy. And I understand it's an incredibly uncomfortable condition. At the same time, you make sure they're exercising and drinking enough water. So all of these little natural remedies can help, but one must always look at the cause. If someone had an underactive thyroid gland, they could make a cayenne pepper compress and apply it to the thyroid. you do it about that size, so half the size that I have done. So I talked about this in one of my lectures at Misty Mountain, and that evening a lady with an underactive thyroid gland said to the staff, "Can I have one of those?" So the staff said yes. They didn't say anything to me about it. The next morning the lady said to me, "I've got good news and bad news." She said, "The bad news is I didn't sleep all night, and the good news is it worked." Because your thyroid controls metabolism, so it woke up the thyroid. So if you have an underactive thyroid, do that in the morning. You might do it for a couple of hours, you might do it 3 times a week. And if you've got an overactive thyroid, you can ice it. That'll slow anything down. 7 seconds on, 7 seconds off, 7 seconds on, 7 seconds off. Until the area is numb, that will slow down the thyroid. And if you have growths on the thyroid, then the castor oil. But remember, it's not going to take it away overnight. Consistency is the key. If you've done it for 3 months and it's still there, what do? You just keep doing it. You've got nothing to lose, nothing to lose. And if it's been there a while, it will take a while to go down. But as you can see by what I've shown you, there's a variety of poultices you can use. Well, how do you know which one to use? Well, you can try potato on your knee one night, ginger the next night, castor oil, and just observe what it does. So looking at our onion cough syrup, can you see the syrup starting to form? So that it's that runny. But ideally that's left for 24 hours and then strained. How long will it keep in the fridge? It'll keep just about indefinitely because honey doesn't go off. For a little baby, you just put your finger in it and dot it on their tongue. Now the princes tell us that babies should not have honey under 1. Well, you're not going to give them a whole teaspoon. But if they've got a cold and you just put your little finger in it and dot it on their tongue, they're getting that nice little bit of honey. The last one we're going to have a look at is charcoal. And charcoal is unique. We've looked at a few things that absorb, but what charcoal does, and I see that I think there's a whole charcoal seminar coming up, which will be very interesting. Charcoal absorbs, but it does something that nothing else does. It neutralises poisons. And the ability to absorb and neutralise poisons is called adsorb. NASA used charcoal to filter blood, no, not blood, filter air and water in outer space. And they use charcoal in hospitals to filter blood for dialysis because it absorbs and it neutralises poisons. So in the home, it can be used externally for bee stings, spider bites, snake bites, because it'll absorb and neutralise poisons. And internally, it can be used for upset stomach, it can be used for diarrhea, vomiting, or poisoning, because it absorbs and it neutralises poisons. Maybe this is a new one. Jacqueline. Still haven't got full strength in this. I've got to talk to her. So this is the easiest way in the home to make a charcoal poultice. You put equal psyllium, so I'm going to put 2 psylliums here. You see, when you mix charcoal and water, it's like mixing dirt and water. And when you put psyllium with water, it goes like a soft jelly. And now I'm going to do 2 of these. When I was in the rainforest, I just used the charcoal out of my fire. And now I'm civilised. I use activated charcoal. And in the seminar, they will explain that in detail. The activated charcoal is more potent than the charcoal out of the fire, but it still works. It's just a bit lumpy. But this is nice and fine. So now I'm going to seal that off and mix it well. And then I'm going to put water with it. And when I've mixed it well and put water with it, it'll go like a soft jelly. And then I can spread it out into this bag. I can feel a hair. I can spread it out so it takes up the whole, there it is, the whole length of the bag. And then you can just leave that in the fridge. And if someone cries out, bee sting, spider bite, maybe you don't have that so much here in America. I've seen a few wasps. And you just run in, get some scissors and cut a square, cut the edge, peel it off and just slap it straight on. And if you don't think anyone's going to get one for a while, you can just keep it in the freezer. Did it? So, I'm sorry that I'm a guesser, and I'm sure when you have the charcoal seminar they'll give you measurements, but I just guess it's about double water. That's what I do when I cook, I guess. In fact, my granddaughter was with me in the kitchen one day and we were cooking and I was throwing a bit of this in and a bit of that in, and I looked at her and I said, carefully measured. So that's going to a jelly now. It's going to a jelly. There's a few ways that you can make it, and I'm sure in the seminar they will explain it to you. Sometimes you can mix it with slippery elm, you could even mix it with chia seed, you can mix it with ground flax. But it's just a little bit more usable, and then you could get a rolling pin and spread that right out. And that's a great, especially if you've got children, especially if you're out in the country and there are bees and what have you around. So you can see how thin that can become. You just keep it in the fridge. In fact, if I needed to use it right now, I could. You just cut it, cut the edge, peel it off and put it on the area. And it's quite remarkable that it brings almost instant relief from the pain of a bite. And the reason that it does is because it absorbs and it neutralises the poison. So it's actually a very old remedy. And a lot of people, when they go to Asia, they'll travel with charcoal tablets. In fact, I've got charcoal tablets in my bag. I travel with them. And I was somewhere and a man got diarrhoea and I gave him my charcoal tablets. And so ends our poulticed seminar. So I'll do some questions now. So feel free to come up and have a look when I've finished. What is the best plant-based source of calcium? Dark green leafy vegetables. Where does the cow get its calcium from? Grass. I've got some good news, you don't have to eat grass. You can have collard greens, kale, there's lots. But tomorrow I'm going to be talking about osteoporosis. So I'm going to fully explore what bones are made of and how to strengthen bones. Should people who avoid dairy supplement with calcium? No, I don't. And I've got strong bones. What is your opinion on using ivermectin or Mediarol for cancer? I don't agree with drug therapy, so I don't use these at all. They are drugs, so I don't use them. Do you recommend doing a natural home birth? No. Do you recommend doing a natural at-home birth? Yes, I've had several babies at home. In fact, my 5th baby I delivered myself. It's a very nice thing to do. I was talking to a lady here, I think yesterday. She said, I'm a home birth midwife. She said, when I finished the seminar here, I must have been the night before last, she said, I went and delivered a baby. I was so glad it came in the night. I can come to the next seminar. Do you know, I believe that we should be born at home and die at home. Yeah. But the mother must keep herself fit and she must be well prepared and know about birth. I was reading a book called The Midwife of Auschwitz. Now, Auschwitz was the concentration camp in Poland. And this woman was a midwife and she was working with the resistance. She was in her 50s. She was caught. She was sent to Auschwitz. In 2 years, she delivered 3,000 babies. Never lost a baby. And these women were suffering from the most severe malnutrition, in the most horrific circumstances, never lost a baby. What's happening in our hospitals? That was the message I got from that. What are some things to do to ease the birthing pains? Keeping fit, and also squatting. Squatting is a wonderful thing to do, and also realising that every strong contraction is pulling that cervix up. And also what the midwives would do is put hot fomentations down here. There's a book called Childbirth Without Pain by... I'm not going to touch my eye with cayenne pepper. It's called Childbirth Without Pain by Dr. Grantley Dick Reed. And he wrote this book in about the 50s. And he used to watch women in hospital screaming all through their births. And then one night he was called out, this was in England, to a lady having birth in a little house in the city, in one of those terrace houses. And he walked in and the lights were low. And he looked in the corner and here was the woman just breathing heavily through the contractions, and then she'd ease. She was in total control of her birth. And this doctor just stood back. He just watched this woman work and breathe through her contractions. And then her breathing changed to guttural sounds, and he knew that she was about to push the baby out, so he went over and helped her there. He went home that night thinking, why do the women in hospital scream? And this woman hardly made a noise, just some guttural noises. And that's when he studied the abdomen of a woman, that you've got involuntary muscles that are contracting with every contraction, and then you've got voluntary muscles. And when a woman is in fear, they contract, and when they contract against each other, it causes pain. Isn't that interesting? Oh, I was so glad I read that book. I read it early. That in many countries, you've probably heard of many countries, women are out in the fields, they have their baby, tie the baby on the back. You think, surely that's a myth. It is not. So it's actually a woman knowing her body, preparing her body, being fit, strong and healthy, and then just working through her contractions and not having fear. So my 3 girls, all birthed naturally, most of them at home, because they grew up never hearing a scary birth story. So please be careful of the stories you're telling when young girls are around. So my girls went into labour with no fear. Sorry, I have to back off. It's one of my favourite subjects. Can chlorophyll be used in place of dark green vegetables? Yes, chlorophyll will certainly supply your dark greens. Do you have to soak nuts like almonds, walnuts, etc.? Can they be eaten roasted or only raw? They're best eaten raw. When you roast them, it does change the oil. And when we looked at the fats lecture, you see how the heat does destroy the oils. Occasionally we will roast almonds and grind them for a satay dish. So it's not the odd time you might roast some almonds for a certain flavour, as long as most of your nuts are eaten raw. Do you like avocado oil? I have to tell you, I never have avocado oil. I mostly have olive or coconut. Doesn't mean that avocado oil is not good, but it should be a cold pressed. Would you have silver amalgam fillings removed? I would. Don't you get a blast of mercury when they're being removed? Well, if it's done properly, it's not much. And the point is, the longer it's in your mouth, the more it is going into your body. So ideally, it should be removed. Best to go to a biological dentist who's aware of the dangers and will take precautions as they're removed. Shingles seems to happen to a lot of older people. What causes them and ways to make sure we don't have shingles? Shingles is from the chicken pox virus. So sometimes it comes from vaccines. So be very cautious of the vaccines. Sometimes it can happen when the body's not been given the right conditions. Stress can tip the scales. Please don't have the shingles vaccine, it will not prevent them. How do I get rid of my huge belly? In my book, Sustain Me, there's a chapter on weight loss. And so cutting the carbohydrates down, balancing the hormones, which we're going to look at tomorrow, and also doing Pilates type exercises where you strengthen that core. How do you reverse Hashimoto's? What experience have you had with this? In my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole chapter on the thyroid where I explore that in detail. Colonics. What is a colonic and can you administer one yourself? You can give yourself an enema, but a colonic irrigation is about a 40-minute treatment where water's coming in and out of the colon through pipes, through tubes. I'm a colonic irrigation therapist and a teacher, so we have used that at Misty Mountain for a long time. Very good for people who've got colon problems, who've got constipation. It can certainly help. But a simple home one is just to do an enema. Any help with sleep apnea and restless legs? Sleep apnea, we have found there's a couple of causes. One can be carrying excess weight, can certainly contribute. Mouth breathing is a big contributing factor to it. So weight loss and teaching your body to breathe through the nose by taping your mouth up at night. Restless legs is usually a magnesium deficiency, so increasing magnesium, having that little bit of Celtic salt before each glass of water, because it's got 3 magnesiums, can certainly help. And you can also rub magnesium oil onto the legs before bed, because it's usually at night. Dr. Neil Nedley, I'll be quoting him a bit when I look at the mind. He's done some remarkable work, and he says that if you do intense leg workouts through the day, so that might be cycling, rebounding, running, whatever you can do, it certainly gives those legs a workout, so there's less likely to have restless legs. Caffeine is a big leacher of calcium and magnesium, so it's important to stop the things that are leaching them. What can I do to help my kidneys at stage 3? In my book, Self-heal, no. Sustain Me. I've got a whole chapter on the kidneys. And I've got a story of their remarkable story of a woman who was about to go on dialysis, who did our program, implemented the herbs, the lifestyle changes, and never had to go on dialysis. You mentioned all organic foods, oranges and fruits are good, but what if they don't have seeds? Example, grapes and watermelons. It is true that they're genetically modified and putting a lot of the foods through crossbreeding to get the seeds out. Well, ideally, they have seeds, but sometimes they don't. Is it okay to use organic Enkenhorn flour to make bread, tortillas or sourdough bread? It's excellent. You see, the Enkenhorn is the original wheat, so it hasn't been hybridised. Is there a remedy for Achilles heel? Achilles heel, I guess it's a strain in the Achilles tendon, so it needs rest, and you could try sleeping with castor oil compress on every night. That could help. Homeopathic medicine, do you use it? I don't. I would much rather use things I can see, and I don't need to go to a homeopathic practitioner to get it. I can just use all this. I can just use the herbs, the water treatments. So that's what I would prefer to use. Favourite remedy? Oh, we've done quite a few favourite remedies tonight. What shampoo do you use? Well, we've got different shampoos in Australia, but something to be mindful of, there's a chemical that they put in shampoo, it's called sodium lauryl sulfate. And sodium lauryl sulfate they put in shampoos to cause it to froth up. And sodium lauryl sulfate, it kills the hair follicles. So ideally you buy a shampoo that doesn't have that in it. And places like Trader Joe's, Sprouts, those health shops, if you look through there, you'll find, I'm sure, some good ones. Could drinking baking soda lower body pH? No, it doesn't at all. All it does is kill your pH in your stomach. And you need that acid pH to break down your protein. Can you use it to treat or prevent cancer? The only time I would advise drinking sodium bicarbonate is if someone had stomach cancer. And even then, only early in the morning and only maybe just before bed. But it doesn't alkalise the tissues. Green drinks will do that. What is your favourite dessert? Well, something that I really love is the frozen cheesecakes. And if you Google frozen vegan cheesecakes, there are some beautiful ones there. But I also love apple pie. When I'm home, I make Michael apple pie about once a week. Coconut sugar, maple syrup, honey. Yeah, they're great sweeteners. But if you have diabetes, you have to ease even off those until the pancreas is happy. What do you recommend for someone with a lung transplant and their body is rejecting the new lung? It's a very, very difficult one. Because when you do have a transplant, they put you on anti-rejection drugs. But I have met people who eventually have stopped the anti-rejection drugs. So it's difficult for me to advise what can be done if the lungs are being rejected. I would actually thank God every day for the new lungs, and I would also picture my body accepting those lungs. And thank God that He's working in my lungs to help my body accept it. Because the mind has a powerful effect on the way the body functions. And so if the doctor says your body's rejecting the lungs, I would say, well, I actually don't believe that. I think my body's going to love my new lungs. And make sure you only breathe through the nose. Can we sleep too much? I think you can do anything too much. Why do we yawn? There's a few theories of why we yawn. One is because we're lacking a bit of oxygen. But as you, and another is that we're just tired. And I think when you see the little children yawning and the babies yawning, what does that tell you? They're ready for a sleep. And there's our question. So I'm going to hand over to Marie.